Oh, man, there's nothing like a snow day, especially if you're like where I am or like where Jeff is. There's no snow, but it's still a snow day. It's fantastic. No problems outside here in Waxahachie. Jeff, you said none in Mansfield.
Right, nothing. Just a little sleet for about, I don't know, not very long.
Yeah, but so many people like us are home today. And consequently, what the heck else do you have to do except let's talk a little baseball for an hour? It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. It's me, John Radigan Rads, with J-Dub, Jeff Wilson. The prophet Elijah is doing all the work to keep us on today and get us through the yard, the stream yard, as it were. And some of your yards, we know, are much different than ours. Ours are just completely normal. And I know there's a lot of snow in the northern part of the Metroplex. So you especially need to hunker down and talk baseball with us.
Right.
Now, we start with a little, I don't know if it's really breaking news, Jeff, but the deadline to get your arbitration eligible players signed has come and gone. And we've seen no notice that they have, that the Rangers have signed either Leody Taveras or Jonah Heim. Yeah,
and but these are starting to come out pretty fast and furiously. If you are dying to know, I would follow John Heyman. He's usually the leader on this one. Michael Kopech and the Dodgers, $5.2 million. Kyle Bradish and the O's, $2.35 million. Our old buddy Jose Trevino on the Reds, $3.425 million. And he posted those in the last 3 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if some news from the Rangers happens during our show. I am at home. The kids are off school. They're off tomorrow too. Already banged tomorrow. And so I said on Twitter, we might have to play a drinking game about how many times the kids and dogs interrupt the show. So I've got my beer right here.
Nice.
Here we go. I'm gonna pour it into the little Stanley Stein to help keep it cool, and I'm ready. If there's an interruption, I'm gonna take a drink.
I cannot believe I missed that post. I would have a beer here too, but maybe we'll work on that one tomorrow as well. I appreciate it. It's absolutely that kind of day, a day for day drinking if you want to, and a day for hunkering down and talking baseball. We talked a lot yesterday, Jeff. And by the way, we will let you know if we see anything regarding Leody Taveras or Jonah Heim and avoiding arbitration. And by the way, just to be clear, even if they don't sign right, even though they haven't signed right now, that doesn't mean they'll go all the way to the arbitrator. It just means they still have time to get this done, Jeff.
Yeah. There's an approach that some teams take called file and trial. So if a player files for arbitration, can't reach an agreement, some teams just say, all right, we're going to a trial. And the last thing you ever want to do, though, if you're a player, is go to a trial, because at this trial, win or lose, your team explains to your face why you suck and why you don't deserve the money that you feel like you deserve. And they almost got there last year with Adolis. That was an 11th hour deal to avoid it. Mitch Moreland almost got him to a trial, but the Rangers haven't been since 2000 with Lee Stevens, and I believe Lee Stevens won, and then the Rangers traded him 3 weeks later. So it's not pretty. All right, it's not a pretty process. Just go ahead and agree. Find the middle ground and get on with it.
Lee Stevens was a good dude too, and I guess the Rangers at that time convinced themselves right? Like, I guess he really does suck. We better get rid of him. So they traded him. But Lee was a good guy with a lot of power and a fun guy to be around when he was with the Rangers. So the other thing that we've been talking about, of course, is the fact that the Rangers are basically saying, we think we're okay. We're going to be okay with what we've added to the bullpen. They lost 4 in free agency from the bullpen at the end of last season. They've added 6. You like those odds. However, technically, they haven't added anybody with any real closer experience. So that's we talked a lot about it yesterday, and it continues to be, something that the Rangers and their fans are certainly cognizant of, or in the case of the fans, I think a lot of them concerned about.
Sure. Okay, let's look back in great teams in Rangers history. They had they had Jeff Russell was their closer for the first playoff team. John Wetland became a closer. And then, Neftali Feliz for the World Series teams was the closer and one of the best in the league. But then like 15, it was Sean Tollison. 16, it was Sam Dyson. And then in 2023, we've talked about that pretty much round and round. But it ended up being Jose Leclerc for the postseason after going through a bunch of guys during the regular season. And then, last year with Yates, not a playoff team or a great team, but nevertheless, I guess what I'm pointing to here is the Rangers have done things without, one of the best closers in the game, or without a guy who was a proven closer. So, you look at Chris Martin and you kind of wonder, all right, what has he done in his career? What did he do last year? Oh, I think that counts as a dog interruption. I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah, I was about to say. I hear him back there.
Yeah, she's not
really a bark, but
Yeah, no, she was getting ready to sneeze, I think. But so I looked at Chris Martin.
Yeah,
last year, pitching the 8th and 7th a ton, finished some games, working the 9th inning. So again, these are leverage situations. As we talked about, they can occur at any time in the game. But 15 holds for him last year in just 45 appearances. So obviously, when there was a lead and he was healthy and available, the Red Sox went to him to help set up Kenley Jansen. And again, when we talked to him, as the beat reporters talked to him Tuesday, he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to have the same approach. I got to get outs. I don't want to give up any runs." Now, of course, he's not the closer yet. The Rangers still have time, and I think they do have the money and wherewithal to do it. They just want to find the right deal. And whether it's paying Kirby Yates, a little more than $10 million a year, or whether it's finding a trade. And as Chris Young told you, John, last week, that hey, let's not forget about that as a possibility.
Yeah.
So I still think that the Rangers are going to get a closer. But, they basically have 5 guys already. You have 8 bullpen spots. So, that would be a 6th. Then basically you would think that Dane Dunning would be a 7th, somebody who can pitch multiple innings and kind of be a long guy or a piggyback guy. So that really puts then in jeopardy the chances of Mark Church making the open day roster. Or Walt Pennington, Jake Latz, who was pretty good for the Rangers at times last year and can work multiple innings. So it's interesting. It really is. If they add a 6th reliever, I don't know if Robert Garcia counts as a veteran, and he does have options and could go to the minors, but he did pitch a full inning last year, right? Or a full year in the majors. So, man. It seems like that the Rangers are going to have some decisions to make. If indeed if they have 6 guys, add 6 guys, man, that's a lot. And that kind of, in some ways, it messes with your flexibility.
Oh, there's no question, and that's one of the things they're up against, and perhaps one of the reasons they're not adding anybody. We have to consider the fact that at some point another bullpen piece will be added, and that's Josh Boers, who will start the the year on the injured list, but within a couple of months, probably by around June, we're told he'll be healthy enough to join the bullpen staff, and maybe ultimately everybody in the organization believes he's got the kind of stuff that would allow him to be a regular closer. Does he have the durability? We're not sure of that. We haven't really seen it yet. And or is he going to sort of be who he was after this surgery? Right? If he's still that guy, I think the Rangers will be pretty happy.
Yeah, they will be. And the thing that was bothering him most last year was the idea of pitching with less velocity. And, when he returned from, I don't know, whichever time he was on the IL, it was 95, 90, 96 instead of 97, 98, 99. And it's a big difference. He felt it. Now, maybe it's between the years, but I think the batters were telling him also that those extra 2 mile per hour are a big deal. His curveball is very, very good when it's right. And he, did show in the postseason a remarkable ability to pitch a lot and to be super effective. So, you hope he is okay. One of those good problems to have, I guess. But really, that's just another one. Then what are you going to do when you have him and maybe a closer and maybe 5 other guys that you signed? It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, and we do appreciate, by the way, everybody chatting along with us. We see you there, and we'll work on some of your questions as we go throughout the program. But it's great to have you on this snow day that, at least in the southern part of the Metroplex, is not snowy. But it's still cold, and it still feels like winter, and it's still an excuse to day drink. I just saw you take a drink, Jeff. Now, was there an interruption?
You were just thirsty.
You're just thirsty. Yeah.
I just talked a lot. I needed something.
Yeah. I don't blame you, and that's good. You have a little brewski nearby for a little day drinking. So, closer obviously is a bit of an issue, but I love the fact, and I saw an interview with Chris Young on MLB Tonight, and as he told you guys, he's ready for it. He's ready for anything, and mentality of a closer is at least, I think, Jeff, at least half the battle.
Right, and you have to have short memories. It's like a cornerback in the NFL. The next play, and then when you're a closer, it's the next day. You might be needed and put back into the same situation you were just in. The thing about relievers, they don't pitch every day. But by God, they throw every day. They're out there, flat ground. They play catch, and then off of flat ground, they're trying to figure something out or make sure everything stays the same. They have very rubbery arms, and they're able to bounce back. They know how to get ready in a hurry. Pitching on back-to-back days has always been a kind of a barometer for. It's one of the blast tests that these guys have to pass in spring training. They need to go back to back and show that they can recover and be effective on the second day. And then, it seems like the Rangers try to avoid using guys 3 days in a row. But there are times when it's just going to have to happen. And so if they're able to be healthy, like Chris says he is, then he shouldn't have any problem working back-to-back days.
Yeah, and I can't remember if we brought this to the show yesterday. I know we talked about it, but the word coming out of Boston at the end of last year was that Chris was thinking this might be his last year. He indicated otherwise to you guys, didn't he?
He did. He said it was a conversation he had with a member of the Boston media that turned into a headline that turned into something that really wasn't necessarily there. Chris, he knows he's old. He's for a baseball player. He's going to be 39 in June. So he recognizes where he is at his career. He's got a much bigger family than when he was with the Rangers, And so, there are things I'm sure he wants to do in retirement. But he also said, if I've got something in the tank, I am not retiring. So, if this guy goes out and has a good year, seems like he wants to pitch only for the Rangers.
Yeah.
So you could see Chris Martin re-sign on a 1-year deal. He didn't break the bank with his deal that he just signed the other day, $5.5 million. Coming home, he no longer lives west of Weatherford. He's now south of Wichita Falls on some land out there. So
wow,
I'm going to guess that he's going to get himself a little apartment.
Yeah,
in Arlington. It just seems like this is where he wants to be.
No doubt about it. I'm sure at this juncture, the Prophet's sitting at his place, just banging that bell, man. He's banging, bell. It's time for us to sell you a few things, but we've got lots more coming up, including a couple of former Rangers who we'll talk about. And up next, we've got some more news about a couple of guys who are headed elsewhere. It's all next on the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
One of my favorite things when I was growing up, because I was kind of a nerd like this, was the East-West Shrine Bowl. And like I said the other day, I loved how they would trade the helmet decals and try to figure out just who exactly went where. But the East-West Shrine game, I tell you what, it's coming to Jerry World on January 30th, America's oldest college football all-star game, the 100th East-West Shrine game at AT&T Stadium. Since 1925, the game has benefited Shriners Children's and its message to provide innovative pediatric specialty care to improve and transform the lives of children. You'll see some of the top players in college football playing this game head-to-head as they try to, open scouts' eyes and improve their draft stock. Huge names: Tom Brady, Paul Hornung, Walter Payton, Roger Staubach, a Cowboys favorite, Lawrence Taylor, Doak Walker, SMU. They've all played in this game, and it's a big deal. So it's the starting point for many noteworthy NFL careers, including 80 Pro Football Hall of Famers. Tickets start at just $20. Visit shrinebowl.com to buy your tickets today.
It's a great game. It's a great idea, and we encourage you to do that, as well as when the weather breaks, which we're told by the guys on TV that it'll break like quickly on Friday, like around noon. And at that time, you're going to need your Shady Rays, especially if there's still snow on the ground. We alluded to this yesterday, but both of us having grown up in snowy climates, there is nothing brighter than the sun bouncing off the bright snow. It's extremely bright. It's blinding. Shady Rays are polarized. They will knock that glare down just like that. They're also very durable. I threw them across the driveway inadvertently the other day. I thought, okay, this is when I'm going to have to test the warranty. I didn't have to because they weren't hurt, but they have a great warranty. I'm sure if I had to test it, I would have gotten a new pair. That's how they work. ShadyRays.com. Go there, use the code DLLS, and get yourself 35% off. It's a great deal at Shady Rays. All right, so the news yesterday was that, we had already heard that Owen White, the Rangers had ultimately, struck up a trade for Owen White with the Cincinnati Reds. But now we hear Sam Huff is headed to San Francisco, Jeff. He'll be a part of the Giants organization.
Yeah, I'm pretty, I don't know, upset. I really like Sam. Good guy. He come on the weekly podcast multiple times. Just a fun, thoughtful guy, a good guy to talk to. And it's frustrating that it didn't work out. Really, when you kind of look back at his career track so far, COVID really kind of screwed him. That COVID season, because he was part of the alternate camp, as they called it. One of the players kept on hand in case somebody was needed. And then late in the season there in 2020, Jose Trevino hurt his wrist and couldn't go. And so here's Sam Huff, who had never played above Class High A. All of a sudden, he's in the major leagues. Now, he did pretty well that year in a very small sample size, but the clock was going. That's boom. That's That's one of his option years, and then 21 he was hurt, didn't make it to the major leagues. 22, 23, 24, not great. He even got an extra option year in there, but it just didn't work out. He was going to be out of options. He is out of options heading into 25. So I think what these moves signify, with White being designated for assignment, and Huff being designated for assignment, and even going back to Ricky Vanasco a few years ago, the Rangers are at a point where their roster has the floor has really been raised. There's not a lot of ability to carry guys and weight on them anymore. And you see the the 5 guys who've been added to the bullpen. Well, I mean, that's 5 guys on option, who have options, who are relievers, who just saw their roster chances really get trimmed down. It raises by raising the floor, it means you got to be pretty darn good to make this team. And right now it's as high as I can remember it. It seems like the Rangers always had prospects, even during the World Series, the initial World Series years, on the roster. And now, man, it's getting hard to make this team because they keep putting together rosters with veteran guys. It happened to Sam Huff when the Rangers signed Kyle Higashioka. That was a big sign that Sam Huff was not in their plans for 2025.
Yeah, and when they get great prospects, or what are, I shouldn't say great necessarily, but some of the prospects who are the best in their organization at the time, but there's no room for them, right? That's it is, and more evidence of it. The name that comes to mind when I'm going through this is Justin Foscue, right? There's just not much place for him to play. We've been hearing for a long time that Justin Foscue is going to be that guy, and I'm just not sure that that's going to happen here.
Well, you're not wrong. I think he had a shot. I mean, he still has a shot at making the roster.
Yeah, of course.
He's really got a hit, but with Jake Burger now as the primary first baseman, at least with Nathaniel Owen, a left-handed hitter, you could envision opportunities for Foscue to get some games every week. Now, I'm not saying he can't be the backup first baseman, and maybe, but with Jock Peterson at DH and with a right-handed hitting first baseman, Foscue might only be able to get DH at bats against lefties. I mean, just really looking at it and trying to find at bats for the kid. Now he has to make some swing changes and get better, and the Rangers still are high on him and think that's going to happen. But that's a great example. Justin Foscue does not have a clear pathway to the opening day roster.
No, and I mean that doesn't mean it's interesting because you still have to draft guys. You're set at shortstop for another 7 years anyway, right? With
right.
Corey Seager. But that doesn't mean you don't draft shortstops. This is part of the sort of the math involved, the science involved, the really thoughtfulness involved in acquiring talent and especially acquiring talent through the draft or through the international free agent markets. It's like, okay, we want this guy because he's a great prospect at the middle of the infield, but right now we're pretty well set at the middle of the infield.
Right, but yeah, I mean, the best amateur players are shortstops, right? I mean, that's just the premium position, star players. Sebastian Walcott, who, if not for Kumar Rocker, would be the number one prospect in the organization, is a shortstop. Now everybody thinks he's going to outgrow the position and end up moving somewhere else, but the Rangers didn't shy away from going after him, and they signed middle infielders, drafted middle infielders. On next Wednesday, that's the beginning of the international signing period. And while they may be waiting for Roki Sasaki's decision, they're going to have a bunch of shortstops and center fielders who end up signing with them because those are the best players. They're premium positions up the middle. You can always change the positions. and with the international kids, you're talking about 16-year-olds. They're not done growing, and their bodies aren't done changing and developing. So, but yeah, they're the best players. And so yeah, Corey Seager is locked up. He may not finish his career, his contract as a shortstop. So there's that possibility. But also, you build a farm system in part to trade from it. And if you have a bunch of great shortstops like Luis Angel Acuna, who was traded for Max Scherzer, well, then you're going to be able to do it. You're still going to preserve your infield depth, and in case something does happen with Corey Seager or Marcus Semien, you're going to have guys.
Yeah, have to have guys. There's no question about that, and you want them, and it doesn't change anything about this. And the Rangers right now, and it's interesting. I actually did just look at I think the MLB.com came out with a thing. They pulled the executives about who has the best farm system, and of course the executives all say, "Oh well, the Dodgers do," but the Rangers didn't appear on any of those. And we know they have a strong farm system, and I'm not sure the executives are the most objective decision makers about this. But right now, according to other MLB executives who were polled on the subject, the Rangers don't show up anywhere among the best farm systems in baseball. And yet here we are talking about the roster floor raising, right? It's getting much higher right now.
I think they're probably in the middle. They started out so high last year because they had Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, who were technically still had prospect status. Then they lost their rookie status, I guess, or cleared the rookie plateaus. So then the farm system dropped like a Led Zeppelin, but then they had some guys develop along the way. You saw Alejandro Rosario have a fantastic breakout year in the minors. Kumar Rocker came back strong. So all of a sudden, the Rangers farm system is looking a little more top heavy. So with Walcott, who had just a monster year at high A as an 18-year-old, second youngest player in that league. So those are the top three prospects. I think Foscue still has rookie status. So he's going to be on most of those prospect lists in the top five for the Rangers. And then you see like an Alejandro Rosario, who kind of Osuna, who was the minor league player of the year, the outfielder from Mexico, and he was finished at Double A and was actually better at Double A than High A. So guys like that. Dustin Harris is still around on the in the lane around the prospect rankings, and I don't want to forget anybody, but you have a guy like Brock Porter, who didn't have a good year.
Yeah.
But Brock Porter, a good year, and all of a sudden you're looking at a guy who's a top 10 prospect again. So it does fluctuate from year to year, but month to month. I mean, it's pretty crazy. They do these rankings, the preseason rankings, okay, that they usually will do an update at the All-Star break, but sometimes they drop one in May, and then they might drop one in September or after the trade deadline, just to kind of update what's happened. And a lot does happen: injuries, breakthrough performances, things like that. So I think the Rangers are probably in the middle. They have plenty of depth to trade from, and I think that to Natalie's question, is Walcott going to play wherever the need is when he comes up? You see a lot of projections as him becoming a right fielder, an outfielder, but he showed some improvement defensively last year at shortstop. So we'll see. I don't think it's that far away. He played some third base last year at Hickory as well. So all I know is that if he's with the Rangers when he makes the major leagues, I think the Rangers are going to have a really, really good player in their hands.
No doubt about it. And let's talk a little bit more about that in the next segment. We'll also talk a little bit about Max Scherzer possibly changing positions, if you will. And one other thing, Jeff, you said that their stock dropped like a Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page, 81 years old today. So,
oh my gosh, wow.
Nice reference. And by the way, 15 years ago today, the Rangers signed Vladimir Guerrero Sr. to a one-year deal. So that turned out pretty well, too. So that's what's happening in history. Lots more happening on the show, including that Max Scherzer talk and some of this changing position talk, too. It's all coming up. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. But right now, what time is it?
Game time!
Yes, it is. An ode to Abby as we talk about Game Time. It's a great, great app. I want you to download it. You probably won't be going to any events tonight, although I see everybody that's involved with the Mavs through our organization at DLLS, our Mavs people. And, you know, I've seen Mark Followell on Twitter talking about it. Everybody's like, we're here, we're ready. Chuck Cooperstein, they're getting there early. The teams are in town. Both teams are in town, having played elsewhere. So anyway, they hope to play tonight. And if you want to go to the Mavs game, go to Game Time. Because you could probably get some tickets for a pretty good price given what the weather's going to be doing out there. And Game Time has tickets for so many different things. It's a great app. They'll show you the seat. They'll show you where your seat's going to be. It's awesome. We want you to avail yourself to Game Time. Go to gametime.com. Use the code DLLS. Get 10% off your first purchase.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they've moved the opening tip to 6:30 p.m. for the Mavs tonight.
That's something which will help, right?
You think so.
That bad weather is supposed to move in after dark, so that's smart.
Yeah. All right. If you look at the wall behind me, we had this room painted probably about 2 years ago, and I had a bookshelf and some knickknacks and fun things like my John Elway autograph football. We have not replaced it yet. I don't know why. That's a question for the handyman in the house, my wife. But I could see a FOCO sign back here real quick. FOCO, if you don't know, they provide everything. You know, you can get pennants, you can get clothes, you can get whatever you need from FOCO. And this wall is bare. It's not like our sweet studio that FOCO has outfitted. So I really need to get something from FOCO to put on this walls for these snow days or days when I'm under the weather. But, I still, John, am hoping for those overalls for you.
I know, me too. Yeah, I got to do that.
I really think that's got to happen. But anyway, check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below on our YouTube page. For all non-pre-sale items, use the promo code DLS10 for 10% off at FOCO.com.
All right, let's get back into this talk briefly about, just like, Sebastian Walcott. He's a shortstop, so he's just going to come here and change position. Let's not underestimate how difficult that can be for a player, right? And the classic example I think about, Jeff, is Joey Gallo, who came up as a great prospect and was a third baseman. And everybody who looked at him, all of us, we'd stand there at spring training and go, that guy's not a third baseman. He's too big to be a third baseman. He played third pretty well. He really did. Ultimately became a Gold Glove right fielder, right? But that's a process to get a guy, first of all, mentally ready to make that change. And then secondly, there's a lot to learn, especially if you're trying to do it at the big league level.
Yeah. Well, one thing you have to be is athletic. And Joey Gallo was very athletic. He ran hard. He was pretty fast. Obviously, he got learned how to get good reads in the outfield, big arm. A lot of things to like about Joey Gallo. So that's the key. You talk about middle infielders who become catchers. You got to be an athlete to do that. So there's got to be some skill to do it. Then there's got to be kind of a desire to do it. A lot of these guys say, well, I'll do whatever to help the team. Okay. And they go and they're playing the outfield, but is their heart really into it? How much time did they put into it? And then there are guys who, like Nathaniel O, are embarrassed by the way they were playing and were motivated simply through vanity, really, to become a better player. So it's not easy, but it happens to guys all the time. It really does. You see it a lot, especially in the minor leagues as they try to find a spot in the majors. Positional versatility is great, but Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith didn't play outfield in the minor leagues. They learned how to do that on the fly up here. So, it is tough. And even, I'm going to segue into Max Scherzer here, it's tough for pitchers to go from starting to the bullpen. The reason for that is there's a lot more throwing. You've got to be ready to go every day when you're a reliever, whereas a starter, you kind of get your routine set. The day after a start is weights day. Then the next day is bullpen day. And then, 3 and 4, and then boom, you're starting again. So it can be tricky for guys. And that's why sometimes in the playoffs, when you put a starter in a game in a situation where guys are on base, he's not used to coming to a game like that, it can get a little sloppy. But as far as Scherzer, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, people who were speculating, well, maybe he can become a closer. I just don't think he's built that way. He, at least not now. Maybe 5-10 years ago he could have done it, but with the injuries, there were times last year where he couldn't just play catch on back-to-back days, and so you got to have a guy who, as a closer, you can count on to come in 60, 70 times a year and pitch, oftentimes back-to-back days. I don't know that Max Scherzer at this age is able to do that. And I don't think he wants to. I mean, this guy's one of the best starters in the last, 50 years. He's top 10 in strikeouts. He's won 3 Cy Youngs. He's won a couple World Series. And so I don't think that's where his heart is. I think he would rather retire than say, the only deal I can get is as a closer. I don't think he'd want to do that. I really don't. And I'm not sure he can do that. And I wonder if he knows he can't do that.
Yeah, he may, because again, he is one guy that we know, and so many, really a lot of them have become almost kinesiologists, right? Because they've been to doctors so many times to figure out why does this ache that way and this ache that way, and they're trying to maximize, the tool that is their body, that is, also the goose that lays the golden egg every day. So, but Max, out of all the men who have figured out so much about how their body works internally, Max seemed to have almost a biologist's approach to it. He was really, really into it.
He was, and really, he's a guy who's been pretty healthy throughout his career. But you learn a lot about your body through working out. Biomechanics is such a big part of the game now. Wouldn't surprise me if he learned some lessons from that too. But the kinetic chain. You always mention the kinetic chain. The knee bone's connected to the elbow, or whatever that old song when you're growing up is. Yeah, the knee bone's connected to the hip bone, or I can't remember. But anyway,
neither one of those are right. Go ahead. Yeah,
yeah. I guess he just could speak at length about it, and he could sound like he could converse with the medical staff and doctors he was seeing, and have a pretty good understanding of what it would take to get ready. And unfortunately, I think we learned that about Max instead of more about his pitching side. He only made 17 starts for the Rangers, and he made 3 in the postseason, and 2 were coming off of injury, and another was he was injured during it. So we didn't get the full Max Scherzer experience. We saw him on game days and how intense he would be, but unfortunately we saw a lot of rehab assignments and things like that. Had a lot of conversations that involved injuries instead of how did he get through the 7th inning against Aaron Judge and Mike Stanton, something like that. So disappointing, definitely an incomplete if you're grading at home. But I think that with Justin Verlander signing, maybe that sets the market for a guy like Scherzer. And he's not going to go pitch for the White Sox. He's going to go pitch for a team that is planning on winning in 2025. The problem is those teams pretty much have their starting rotations. So it's going to be a team that's kind of waffling, maybe down in the lower end of the rotation. They're like, we could go with this guy, but can we do better? Yes. Is Max Scherzer better? If he's healthy, then hell yes, he's better. So I think that's kind of the opportunity he has to wait for.
Yeah, and to be clear, Justin Verlander set the market basically at $15 million. He has signed a $15 million one-year deal with the Giants. So that sort of tells you and tells Max Scherzer and his agent what kind of money he could look for. And then what the team has to decide is a $15 million gamble on a guy who, if he's great, he's worth so much more than $15 million, but might only pitch 4 games. There's your gamble. There's you putting your money on some 1,000-to-1 odds at Las Vegas.
Yeah, he his velocity is down. Okay, he's been hurt, but last year I saw something where his swing and miss rates were among the best in baseball. Even when he did pitch, this guy still has the stuff, and he still knows how to pitch. So yeah, he would a healthy Max Scherzer would help the Texas Rangers. Honestly, yeah. He'd help anybody. But it seems like, again, it's one of those situations where, okay, I've got to, there's a finite group of teams that are fancy themselves as contenders, and he's got to find the one that he believes in the most. And then another possibility, if he signs with the team that maybe is borderline, maybe like a Twins, let's just throw out the Twins, and the Twins fall out of contention, well, maybe Max Scherzer gets traded at the deadline. It's happened to him before. So there are a lot of things that can take place. But as of now, he doesn't have a team. But I think it's because he probably has a pretty fairly good idea of where he wants to pitch.
No doubt.
Yeah.
He's a very thoughtful guy. It does sort of beg the question, when the Mets got him and Justin Verlander in the same offseason, which coincided with the offseason that they lost Jacob deGrom. But when they got those two guys, it looked like, okay, yeah, the Mets are headed in, really good direction right now. And yet, for whatever reason, neither one of them really performed at the level you expected them to perform at. Now, I don't think Max Scherzer was hurt much during his stay with the Mets. It just wasn't working.
Yeah, I think he was a little banged up for one of those seasons. He didn't pitch a full season, but and Verlander, I believe, was coming off the Cy Young Award, so he is not far removed from a Cy Young, but he also has just been dealing with injuries, and there's just no other way to say it. He's getting older too, and it's not a nerve thing like Max Scherzer's dealing with, but it's soft tissue stuff that you see happen to older guys, and he's had Tommy John and all of that stuff. But again, these guys know how to pitch, and they have a lot of pride, and I think that I think the Giants got better by signing Verlander, and I think whoever signs Max Scherzer will get better too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, we enjoyed our time, with Max Scherzer, interviewing him, talking to him, learning about pitching and kinesiology from Max Scherzer. So yeah, we wish nothing but the best for him. And under any circumstances, you can't forget that he was a part of the 2023 team. The on-field results may have not been what everybody hoped for or expected, but he's a guy who would help the younger pitchers, and several of them talked about it after the fact, what a big help he had been to them, and just sort of calming them down and getting them ready to know what to expect.
He went 8 starts for the Rangers in 2023. He went 4-2 with a 3.20 ERA. That's pretty handy.
Yeah,
that's pretty darn good. The one bad start was when he started to have the forearm issues against the Astros, and at that time the Astros were making everybody look bad. So then he comes back in the championship series, doesn't pitch particularly well in his first start. His second start, the first inning, the Rangers scored on that Seager home run, and I think they added another one. And right away, the Astros were mounting a rally against Scherzer, and he got a big double play that really diffused what looked like an opportunity for the Astros to take off or tie the game or even take the lead. he made a pitch. He got a double play ground ball that was badly, badly needed. And the Rangers took off from there. Now, he didn't get out of the third inning because they brought in Jordan Montgomery to get him through to the fifth. But, Max Scherzer contributed to that Game 7 win and helped get the Rangers into the World Series. And then, his appearance in Game 3 when he hurt his back, he he hadn't allowed a run, I don't believe, and or maybe one. And then in comes John Gray in an emergency relief spot, and he just dominated for 3 innings. So, Scherzer definitely has his fingerprints on that 2023 championship.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We've got more coming up as we get to our cleanup segment, and we've got lots to cover there, including a couple of former Rangers who have landed elsewhere. We're going way back in time, too. It's all next. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
John, I'm not wearing any gear today. Looks like you are, though.
Yeah, wishful thinking, right? This is a baseball. That's a very, very nod to baseball, right? With the big league chew and all that. But no chance of going out there. And I guess I could walk to town and get some gum, but I'm not playing any baseball. But you know what? I'd walk in this shirt. I promise you. Great merchandise. Store.allcitynetwork.com is the place to go for this wonderful merchandise that we have. And we have so much more than just T-shirts. Very soon, hats will be coming. It is 2025. We'll keep getting on the people to make sure we get the hats. And there's, tumblers, shot glasses, and things like that. Make sure you go to store.allcitynetwork.com and get your merchandise for all city. And it's all cities within all city that are represented at that website. But get the DLLS stuff and show up at an event and show it to us.
Absolutely. And you are going to visit store.allcitynetwork.com once you become a diehard member. Look, become a diehard. It's a subscription made for DFW sports fans. We cover all 4 sports teams, writers who have been there and done that and know what they're doing. Clarence Hill on the Cowboys, Tim Cato on the Mavs, Sam Nestor, who came from covering the Devils. He's over doing the Stars, and it's just such good stuff. I mean, you're not going to find a more experienced team in covering beats than you do at DLLS, and that includes the Dallas newspaper, obviously the Fort Worth newspaper. I've said my piece on them, but I'm going to keep saying it. The Star Telegram sucks. If you're subscribed to the Star Telegram trying to get sports coverage, they're ripping you off. There's just no other way to do it. So $79.99. Go to allcity.com and become a diehard member today.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I think you'll appreciate it, especially as we keep going forward with this thing, because there's going to be a lot to write and talk about with regard to the Rangers this year. I think it was Ardell who said right there at the end of the last segment, Rangers are really all in, referencing, when Jerry Jones multiple times last off season said that the Cowboys were, and clearly they weren't. And this is pretty close. I mean, I think, Jeff, if the Rangers were 100% all in, they would have already. But I know you think, and I kind of do too, they still may get that closer. Then they will have done every single thing anybody sort of thought that they needed to do during the offseason.
Yeah. I just think there's the money. I wrote about this today for diehard members only. Jock Peterson's deal, the Associated Press found the terms. He got a $5.5 million signing bonus this year. So that knocks his salary that counts against the payroll to $13 million. So that's another $5.5 million freed up that these, Sport Track and whoever else does the tracking of payrolls didn't necessarily know right away. So holy moly, holy cow. If that means that the Rangers have $20 million to deal with, shoot, don't just sit there. Go get a closer, for crying out loud. I just saw, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, that Leody Taveras avoided arbitration at 4.75. I thought it'd be less than 4. So good for Leody. Good for Leody there. And I think that shows you that, the Rangers do like the guy.
They like him. Yeah.
They really like him. They see a lot of potential there that he hasn't realized yet. And he's been here this offseason, which is, I think, really critical. Working with the hitting coaches, hands-on training rather than, going home to the Dominican where, maybe he develops a habit he doesn't realize he develops. Well, now they're staying on top of him, getting that swing tuned up real nice. And hopefully he can hit some left-handers too. But that's an interesting number. I'm going to guess that Jonah Heim's right around the same mark.
Yeah.
So anyway, just get it done. Like I said early on, no need to go to a hearing. Find common ground and let's move on, and no drama. Just the only drama left this offseason will they sign a closer, and what's Roki Sasaki going to do?
Right, which we'll know. In fact, let's get to that now as we run through our cleanup segment. The Sasaki Saga continues. Yesterday, we mentioned that J.P. Morosi was indicating that there was an 8th team involved. We've known there were 7 that Sasaki had talked to in the initial round. 20 teams expressed interest in him at the very beginning of this process. 8 of them apparently had an audience, if you will, had an opportunity to sell themselves, one-on-one with Sasaki. And that 8th one is not a surprise at all, Jeff, but now it comes out today. It appears that 8th one is the Seattle Mariners. Again, a heavy dose of Ichiro, apparently, and players weren't allowed to be in that meeting, but Ichiro is no longer a player. In some way or another, Ichiro was very prevalent in the Mariners' pitch, understandably.
Of course. He's the greatest Japanese player ever to date. He may get knocked aside by Shohei Ohtani, but right now it's Ichiro. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame this year. He's still, you see him, especially in Seattle. He still works out with the team before games and shagging fly balls and stuff. And you'll see, some viral videos of him doing some crazy throw or hitting a home run or doing something. He can't shake the baseball thing, and it's been pretty good to him. So I wonder, the next wave. It sounds like Sasaki has set parameters like he did with the player thing. Are they going to finally allow players? I mean, I think he needs to hear from players. Not just Japanese players, but English-speaking players. Players who have been on multiple teams. Like Corey Seager. Hey, you played for the Dodgers. You played for the Rangers. What's better with the Rangers? Tell me what's better with the Rangers. And maybe he doesn't have this conversation in a formal meeting, but maybe he's able to reach out to players and pick their brains. I mean, this is an important decision. And baseball executives who are in these meetings for all teams are only showing the highlights. They're not talking about any concerns. There's some more homework to be done, but and I've been saying this. Chris Young is a big factor, and then the ballpark's just a huge factor. You heard Jock Peterson call it the 4 seasons. You just can't say it enough that ballpark for player purposes is unparalleled in the major leagues.
No doubt. The best, the Taj Mahal, and hopefully that'll be hopefully Roki Sasaki will make Texas, Arlington, one of his visits, because he says he's going to visit. His agent says he's going to visit a couple of places. Don't know if that means 2. It usually implies 2. So hopefully Texas is one of them, because if he sees that, it's another big selling point. Our buddy Martin Perez has signed up with the White Sox, Jeff. And, obviously, we've also, got the manager there in Will Venable, and we've got now Martin there. White Sox will be a team for us to root for when they're not playing the Rangers with guys we like there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I said it before that Martin Perez is one of my all-time favorite guys that I've worked with, and just a good guy. Would tell me a lot of stuff that's going on. So I got some scoops from Martin, which I always appreciated. But he always asks about the family and the kids, and he's got a growing family. You're like, oh God, he only signed with the White Sox. Yeah, but he signed with the Pirates last year, and guess what? He got traded to the Padres, who almost beat the Dodgers in the division series. This signing has trade written all over it. If Martin Perez is remotely good, he's going to get traded at the deadline. There's just no other way to say it. The White Sox aren't going to be good. They're going to be trying to get players for their farm system and somebody who's going to hit as they rebuild this thing. And Martin Perez could be a vehicle for that. So, if Martin is let's say, I don't care, his win-loss record doesn't matter. If he has about a 4 ERA or a 3.7 ERA at the trade deadline, he will no longer be pitching for the White Sox.
Yeah, and they'll get a couple of nice prospects for him and help continue to rebuild that farm system, and he'll land somewhere where he has a chance to pitch for a team that's in contention. Maybe Texas. Who knows? He's made the return trip to Texas before, after all.
I believe he still lives in Dallas.
Does he? Okay.
And when he's not in Venezuela. So
yeah,
a lot of reasons for him to come back.
Absolutely. All right. And the other one, Brock Burke has signed with our buddy Paramenazian and our buddy Wash with the Angels. So Brock's that's a unique character, Jeff.
I like Brock a lot. He avoided arbitration, which is good. When he, last year, his season's going to be defined by him punching that door in Houston and breaking his hand. But when he went down to AAA and was pitching there, he was throwing hard. He was up to 98. When he came up when he was designated for assignment and claimed by the Angels, he was still coming in and throwing super hard for them. But yeah, he's a good guy. He and my mother went to the same high school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A good 40 or 50 years apart, but nevertheless, Evergreen High School in Colorado. So we always had that. He's a Broncos fan, so I'm always going to like Brock about that too. But I like the guy. He was part of the trade of Jerks and Profar. It was a 3-team trade there in the offseason of 18, I believe. I was at a press conference for the Fort Worth Bowl. And when that trade broke, but anyway, or Armed Forces Bowl, I guess it is. But Brock Burke, good dude. I'm glad he is pitching in the major leagues still.
Yeah, and before the Rangers started making postseason runs and so forth, Brock was always excited to get done with the season because he and his dad would go hunt like elk and deer. I mean, not deer, but even moose. Like big stuff.
Yeah, it's my sister and her husband, they live in Loveland, Colorado, which is between Longmont and Fort Collins and not far from the foothills. Well, every day in their little neighborhood, a herd of elk just comes down and posts up in their neighborhood.
Amazing.
It's amazing to see. You got to watch where you're walking because they aren't very discreet about where they take a poop. But it's pretty cool to see those big animals.
Yeah, they're amazing. All right, one last thing in the show today. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us all day long. We'll be right back here tomorrow at 2:00. But let's show you. I just saw this on Twitter, and I just thought it was so cool. Logos from all the teams from the 1950s. And when you see these, you realize, man, the 1950s were just a fun time, weren't they? I mean, everything, every guy, every logo on there, it's like, wacky and funny and caricature in a cartoon. Even the pirate doesn't scare me. I mean, every single one of them, Jeff. The tiger looks like what was the guy, Snagglepuss or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, those are all great, and you can look on some of the older baseball cards that have the team logos, like the 60 Tops. You can still see some pretty fun logos like that on those. And I always like to look back at stuff like that.
Yeah, I may have to look for some merch, some hats that have some of those logos on them too. So anyway, that'll do it for us today. We appreciate you. Enjoy, be safe, be warm. I think tomorrow morning might be worse than this morning was for most of us. So hang in there, be good, be strong, be safe, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another edition of the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.